The Utahraptor. Hi, it's me, and welcome to Paleologic. Today, we're talking about the Utahraptor, so let's get into it. The Utahraptor is a genus of raptor that lived in what is now the western side of North America during the late Cretaceous period, more specifically the Campanian age, about 76 to 75 million years ago. The name Utahraptor was given to this dinosaur because it was found in Utah, and it's a raptor. Put them together, and you get Utahraptor. The original species is called the Mitchellii, named after the paleontologist George Mitchell, who actually found the fossil of the first individual in 1977. It was officially described by James Kirkland in 2003, and as of 2020, there are 4 other species that have been proposed but not yet validated. They include Utahraptor astoni, Utahraptor Christopher Mitchellii, Utahraptor longi, and Utahraptor aspicidurs Navgrust, Yates. So the species that have been proposed are named after the Yates Petroleum Company, who helped fund the excavations where these fossils were found. So we don't know how valid those other species are. We need some more evidence before we can say for sure. The Utahraptor is part of a group of theropods called the raptors, which means it was a relatively small to medium-sized, bipedally walking, feathered carnivore. Raptors were a very diverse group of dinosaurs with many different body sizes, behaviors, and lifestyles. You might be thinking of the velociraptors from Jurassic Park when you hear the word raptor, but the Utahraptor and the velociraptor are not closely related at all. In fact, they're pretty distantly related. The Utahraptor was much closer to the Acrocanthosaurus, the same genus that the famous Scotty and Bruno belong to. See if I can make a video on those guys next. Let me know if you want to see that. Anyways, the Utahraptor was a close relative of the Dromaeosaurus and honestly looks a lot like one too. The Utahraptor was only slightly larger than the Dromaeosaurus though. It was about 4 meters or 13 feet long, and about 1 meter or 3 feet tall at the hips. It weighed around 150 kilograms or 330 pounds. So it wasn't tiny by any means, but it also wasn't huge either. If you wanted to put this thing in a fight, you would definitely pick the Acrocanthosaurus over the Utahraptor, but you wouldn't have to pick the tiny Dromaeosaurus anymore either. This size kind of puts it right in the middle of the food chain among the raptors. There were plenty of smaller ones and plenty of bigger ones. Like most raptors, the Utahraptor had feathers, and based on the presence of feathers on the tail and on the legs, it was probably a descendant of a group of feathered raptors known as the Dromaeosaurids. Now keep in mind, this isn't just some small proto-bird that evolved once and then every other type of bird came from that one lineage. Evolution doesn't work like that. There were tons of different groups of feathered dinosaurs, and birds evolved from multiple different groups of feathered theropods many times over. And honestly, evolution is still kind of a mystery to us. We're still learning about it. Just remember, everything is connected. All life on Earth is related. We'll link to some great resources on our website. The Utahraptor was a carnivore and had to hunt for its food. Its skull was reconstructed by paleontologists based on a relative of the Utahraptor called the Boreopelta Mark Mitchellii. It has a really cool crest on top of its head, so that's fun. It had a total of 86 teeth, which is a lot compared to some other raptors, but remember, this guy was a little bit bigger, so he needed a few extra. It also had a fairly long and slender snout, which could have been useful for catching slippery prey like fish. Or maybe it used its long snout to hold onto the crest while fighting, like a moose. That's just a guess. Now, we gotta talk about that famous killing bite. All raptors had a special killing bite that they used to slay their prey. When they bit into something, they would slice with their serrated inner tooth and then impale their victim with the 4th tooth from the front on the upper jaw. This would happen simultaneously as their lower jaw would do the opposite, moving forward to slice and slice again. The Utahraptor's teeth seem to have been perfect for this move as they were long, curved, and serrated. Plus, it had strong jaws and powerful neck muscles to help out with that whole procedure. And the Utahraptor didn't need to eat its prey whole. Its arms were surprisingly long and strong enough to tear flesh, making eating a breeze. Also, because it was a raptor, it had 3 fingers on each hand instead of the usual 5. Those fingers were opposable as well, meaning it could use its hands similarly to how we use our hands. Kind of. Don't forget that even though it had hands, it couldn't hold objects with them, at least not in the way that we think of holding things. They had thumbs, but no palms, so they wouldn't have been able to grip things like we do. Imagine trying to play piano with just 3 fingers on each hand. Not good. The Utahraptor had a long, stiff tail that ended in a diamond-shaped bone called the pygostyle. This stiffened tail could have helped it with balance while running, or maybe it used it to help it steer while running. The rest of the tail was made up of regular, flexible vertebrae. These vertebrae were also unique as they were connected by strong ligaments, making the entire tail kind of one giant bone. It might have looked like a whip or a club depending on where you look at it. Either way, it was super cool. Scientists aren't exactly sure why it had such a weird tail, but they think it might have had something to do with mating rituals. Maybe the males had longer whips than the females, so the ladies would just line up to be hit by the longest whip. Totally reasonable. Finally, let's talk about those legs. The Utahraptor was a fast runner thanks to its legs. It had a special way of running called dynamic walking. Dynamic walking is where the foot lands and then immediately lifts back up without touching the ground again until it's time to land again. In between those steps, the animal is basically flying through the air. It's really cool. The Utahraptor's legs and feet were perfectly adapted for this. Its legs were really long and powerful, and its feet were lightweight, flexible, and flat. It had an ankle bone called the astragalus that was shaped in a way that would allow it to move up and down, which was important for running. Its toes were also short, which would have saved weight and made it faster. Because of these features, scientists think that the Utahraptor could run as fast as 40 miles per hour. That's faster than Usain Bolt. The Utahraptor was discovered in Utah, as the name suggests, but it was actually found in a layer of rock called the Soldier Canyon Formation. This formation is located in a place called the San Juan Basin, which is shared by 3 states, Colorado, New Mexico, and Utah. The age of the rock is what makes it so interesting. The dinosaur that we call the Utahraptor today actually lived during an event called the Laramide orogeny. This is a series of mountain-building events that happened towards the end of the Cretaceous period. The mountains built during this event are what led to the Rocky Mountains we see today. So the Utahraptor lived at a time when the land it inhabited was being pushed upwards, creating new mountain ranges. It also lived during a time when the continents were moving apart. The Atlantic Ocean was getting wider, and new ocean water flooded the inland seaways, including the one that existed in the area where the Utahraptor lived. This caused shallow seas to replace inland lakes and rivers. The seas became home to all sorts of marine animals like clams, snails, fish, and sharks. On land, mammals started becoming more common, even though they were still fairly small. As for the Utahraptor, it lived in an environment that went from mostly desert to tropical forest to swampy in a relatively short amount of time. It experienced warm summers and mild winters. And, to be honest, it was probably hot and humid most of the year. So yeah, the Utahraptor didn't live in Utah. It lived in what is now the Four Corners region of the southwestern United States, and it lived during a time of massive change in geography and climate. It was a witness to the changing of the Earth itself. All right, thank you for coming on this journey with me. I hope you learned something. If you did, please leave a like and a comment and tell me what you thought. If you want to see more videos from us, you can check out more on our channel. Don't forget to subscribe. And as always, remember to think before you speak. And I'll see you next time.